my channel. My name is Hope and I'm a photographer and business coach, and this YouTube channel is where I share education for entrepreneurs and a little peek at my life living in Charleston, South Carolina. But today I want to talk about something very specific because I am a senior portrait photographer. I actually started my business when I was only 16 years old. So naturally, photographing other seniors and my peers in high school was one of the main things that I did. It was like the service that set up my entire business to be where it is today. So I'm very passionate about senior portraits. It's something that I talk a lot about on this channel and provide a lot of educational resources for. But one of the most frequently asked questions that I get about camera settings for senior portraits is how to set your aperture, because that's going to set the depth of field for your images, but more importantly, it's going to heavily affect the focus of your images as well. And one of your priorities as a photographer should always be to get images as sharp as possible while still having that beautiful depth of field and blurry background that you see in really high-end professional photos. However, one of the common misconceptions about senior portrait photography and about high-end lenses and beautiful depth of field is that it has to be as wide open as possible, meaning the aperture needs to be as low as it can go. So I have lenses like the 50mm 1.2, which means the lowest aperture I can go would be 1.2. And some people think that that is the best way to shoot because it gives you the blurriest background, and because the lens can do it, and because the lens is so expensive since it can go all the way down to 1.2, that should be what you do. But I would argue differently, because I actually shoot every single one of my senior portrait sessions at 2.5 aperture. That is like my secret little sweet spot to get really sharp images that still have a really beautiful background and making sure that they are still tack sharp in focus. So I want to break down today the 3 reasons why I shoot senior portraits around 2.5, 2.2 to 2.5 range, and give you examples of images showing the 2.2 to 2.5 aperture. And I also want to talk a little bit about focusing, because that is one of the biggest questions that I get when it comes to how to get really tack sharp images. There are so many different ways to focus. You can use autofocus, you can use manual focus, you can use your shutter to focus, you can manually select focal points, you can back button focus. And I wanted to share with you really quickly how I focus for all of my images, because it makes a really big difference on why this 2.2 to 2.5 aperture sweet spot works really well. So I shoot with a Canon 5D Mark III, and I'm actually going to be giving you guys a free copy of my senior gear checklist if you'd like it. The link is in the description, and you can download it to see every camera I use, every lens I use, and everything I pack with me for my senior session. So download that for free below if you'd like. It's just a free gift to say thanks for tuning in. But when I am shooting, I use a Canon 5D Mark III at my senior sessions, and I am using back button focus. And essentially what that means is I am giving 2 different buttons on my camera 2 different jobs. Because when you get your camera in the mail, it's automatically set up so that the shutter focuses and takes the picture. So that one button has 2 different jobs. Its job is to focus and take the picture in one split second, and that ends up resulting in sometimes having really inaccurate focus because one button is having to do 2 jobs in a very fast, quick-paced way. But when you do back button focusing, you're giving 2 different buttons 2 different jobs. So I have a button on the back of my camera that focuses, and then the shutter just takes the picture. So each time I am shooting, I am manually selecting the focal point by toggling, and I'm selecting the focal point that is on my senior's eyeballs. So I want to select the eye that is closest to the camera by manually toggling to that point, back button focusing, and shooting. And I've gotten lots of practice in, so I can do this very, very quickly. But doing that allows me to manually focus and manually lock in the focal point on the eye that's closest to the camera, which allows her entire face to be in focus while still having the blurry background. So if you were wondering how I focus to make this work, that's a little bit of the workflow. So I want to break down the 3 reasons that I shoot at that sweet spot of 2.2 to 2.5 and why I recommend that versus shooting really wide open like 1.2 or 1.6, and why I recommend it more than shooting really high aperture like 5.6 or higher. And number 1, the first reason why I think that this is a perfect sweet spot is because it gives you just enough focal plane to keep the entire client's face in focus. And what I mean by that is when you are focusing your camera, you are not focusing on a dot, you're actually focusing on a plane. So if I'm selecting my client's eye as the focal point, it is going to keep everything on that same plane or like flat line in focus as her eyeball. And because I'm doing that at 2.5, it's not just one plane like it would be if it was 1.2, it's a little bit wider of a plane, which means that if I'm focusing on her eye, the majority of her face is also going to be in focus. And that allows for images that look really, really tack sharp, even if her nose is slightly blurrier than her eye. Because I'm selecting her eye and I'm shooting it a little less wide than all the way wide open, it allows for more of her face to be in focus. The second reason is because it still gives me sharp images while also giving me that really blurry background. If you're new to the photography world and you're a more beginner photographer, then you probably see those images with those dreamy, blurry backgrounds and you wonder how to make that happen in your own images. And you have to find that sweet spot of shooting wide enough to get the blurry background, but not too wide to sacrifice the sharpness of your images. But shooting at 2.2 to 2.5 on a prime lens really allows you to get the sharpness of your subject while still getting the blurry background in the background. You're not sacrificing that really pretty, dreamy, creamy glow that comes from that blurry background. And lastly, reason number 3 is because it allows for a little bit of flexibility if your senior client brings someone with them. I actually allow my seniors to bring a friend or their boyfriend or their family if they would like to their session, and then I don't have to like finagle all my settings and change everything the second somebody else comes in the picture. I actually still leave my aperture at 2.5 because as long as all of the faces are on the same plane, like in these images, it allows for people to all be in focus and everybody's face to be in focus because they're on the same plane, even at 2.2 or 2.5. So I hope this quick tip was really, really helpful. I'm going to share a full senior session gallery down below so that you guys can see what a full gallery looks like where I'm shooting the entire time at 2.5 and you can kind of see all of those tips in action. But I hope this was helpful. If you want to get more photography and entrepreneur education, please subscribe to my channel and I will see you guys next week. Bye.